All right, picture this with me. Because anyone who follows Baltimore already walks into every game with that feeling of here we go again, and it is not an exaggeration. People online were saying exactly that, a mix of venting, irony, and pure desperation. Because this offensive line simply cannot make the offense's life any easier. One fan dropped a question that basically became the anthem of the post-game. Was number 95 not on the scouting report? Nothing else needed to be said. That one line summed up what the entire fan base was shouting at their screens while watching Myles Garrett turn the game into his own personal practice session. And look, no one can pretend to be surprised. Everybody knows Garrett is a force of nature. He is always going to impact a game, always going to blow up a handful of plays because that is the level he plays at. But for sacks, that crosses the line of what is acceptable for an NFL offensive line. You cannot let a guy like that get one-on-one opportunities. He is built to win those matchups without breaking a sweat, and Baltimore knew that. They talked about it, they emphasized it. And somehow it still looked like there was zero urgency to build a plan that actually neutralized the problem. Then you look at the pieces individually and realize you cannot dump all the blame on one player. Sure, Daniel Falele has become the face people attached to the mess. But saying he is the only issue would be completely unfair. The entire unit is struggling. There are snaps where it feels like each lineman is fighting a different battle and losing it just the same. You see one being shoved backward, another thrown to the ground, another watching a defender run right past him as if he bought a front row ticket instead of blocking. And no, that is not exaggeration. That is what is happening on film. Roger Rosengarten, for example, is going through a regression nobody expected. There were plays where he got tossed to the ground like he was part of a viral dunk poster on another snap. He was driven backward so violently that he ended up colliding with his own quarterback's helmet and redirecting a pass that became an interception. Sounds like comedy, but there is nothing funny about it. In the run game, you might see a spark here and there. The team opens a lane on one possession, gives the impression that the ground game is finally settling in, and then it vanishes. It lasts a drive, maybe two, and then everything collapses again. It is the same pattern every single week. And the worst part is that they already had the perfect window to test changes, reorganize the unit, try new combinations. The break in the schedule was right there, and they did nothing. Now, based on everything we have seen, it looks like they are going to keep rolling with this group as if more competitive options did not exist. Meanwhile, the quarterback is expected to perform mini miracles on nearly every snap. People glance at the stat sheet and say he did not play well. But that ignores the reality in front of him. There are plays where the pressure arrives before the play even begins to unfold. His feet barely hit the ground before a defender is already wrapped around him. In the run game, it is the same story. It does not matter how physical or explosive your running back is if the line opens lanes only in isolated moments and then falls apart again immediately after. Even with all that chaos, you still see glimpses of how much talent this offense has. Zay Flowers once again shows why he is such a gem. Isaiah likely finds soft spots with good roots. Mark Andrews continues being himself and even hits an important milestone. Adree Hopkins makes a tough contested grab. But none of that becomes the headline because the offensive line overshadows everything in the worst possible way week after week. It is impossible to ignore. Every mistake feels like a repeat of last week's mistake, just in a different costume. And when you use the last game as an example, it was not only Myles Garrett causing trouble. Multiple guys from that Cleveland front were getting pressure with absurd ease. No offense can function that way, and at the same time, you can almost picture former Baltimore legends shaking their heads thinking, if I were playing against this group today, I could drop monster numbers without even trying. The fans feel that too. They have felt it for weeks. There is another important angle. This is not a new issue. This has been happening since the first snap of the season. Every week the question is the same. Is this the right combination? And every week the answer seems to be apparently not, yet nothing changes. You cannot treat a unit this important as if it is performing fine when it is not. That is the frustration simmering in the fan base. It feels like the entire group is signaling for help and the coaching staff keeps responding with, it will eventually work. Then the game turns into a messy battle, tight score, nerve-wracking sequences. And you start to realize how a team can turn a win into a full-blown emotional marathon. Baltimore won, and that counts, but at the same time, the collective feeling is that it could have been so much smoother. It could have been a commanding performance, but the offensive line decided otherwise. And it is not like the schedule ahead is going to calm the storm. More elite pass rushers are waiting over and over, maybe not at Garrett's level, but still guys capable of wrecking a game if the protection remains anywhere near this shaky. The hope is there, but it feels more tied to the possibility of a miracle than to any real confidence that the line is actually going to improve. And when you start digging into what happened after halftime, everything becomes even clearer. Because Baltimore came back onto the field without a single adjustment. That genuinely shifted the direction of the game. It looked like the offense had just accepted the idea that they would need to survive snap by snap, hoping the defense would hold things together long enough. That works for a while, but it is not sustainable. You do not build a winning identity by depending on an improvised hero every single week. The offense needed room to breathe, needed at least a hint of stability. But every attempt at rhythm was shattered by a protection breakdown at the worst possible time. Snap after snap, you could feel that tension in the air, knowing that it only took a defender gaining half a step for the whole play to collapse. And when you are playing under that constant feeling of threat, the entire game plan loses shape. The play calls get more cautious, the quarterback speeds up his decisions, the receivers start adjusting routes early. It is a brutal domino effect that begins with the offensive line and spreads across the entire field. No unit should be carrying that much weight. But the truth is that this line has been the epicenter of the weekly problems without fail, and of course, the usual debate comes up about how the team could work around this with quick throws, shorter concepts, lateral movement, but it is not that simple. When the pressure arrives before the first read is even set, you cannot establish any kind of rhythm, and when the offense finally finds a tempo, suddenly you get that play where a lineman widens the angle too much, or loses his hands on first contact, and everything falls apart again. It feels like the same story on repeat, only with different players taking turns as the culprit. The strange part is that even with all these issues, the defense steps up and delivers huge moments. It forces turnovers, flips field position, sets the offense up with ideal opportunities. But when the offense responds with stalled drives because of basic protection mistakes, all that effort evaporates. The defense tries to keep the game under control, but eventually you cannot ask it to carry the entire team on its back every single week. The offense has to take advantage of the chances it gets, and that starts with a line that can, at the very least, keep things stable. Then comes the psychological factor a lot of people overlook. A quarterback who takes hit after hit does not play the same way. His steps get faster. He abandons the pocket earlier than he should. He starts anticipating contact. This is not a lack of toughness, it is survival instinct. You cannot expect someone to maintain perfect mechanics when he knows a defender might burst through untouched at any second, and it does not matter how talented or experienced he is, this affects everyone. Just look at the league stars over the years and you will see the same pattern. Constant pressure completely reshapes what an offense can be. The frustration in the run game follows the same logic. On some carries, you can see the design clicking, with the running back finding a crease and fighting for meaningful yards. But then on the very next play, the entire thing collapses into a wall, or worse, a blown-up run with two defenders slicing straight through the middle. There is no continuity. There is no identity. And without that, the offense becomes predictable, limited, and desperately reliant on individual efforts that do not always come. The most alarming piece is that we are talking about young players who should be developing, gaining confidence, sharpening technique. Instead, this looks like a group that is regressing as the weeks go by. There is a lack of cohesion, a lack of posture, a lack of awareness about how crucial it is to protect the rhythm of their own offense. And it is not just a talent issue, it is an issue of adjustment, awareness, and reaction. There are snaps where the defender is practically announcing the move pre-snap, and no one responds in time. That simply cannot keep happening. When you look over at the sideline, the players' expressions tell the entire story. A blend of frustration and disbelief. Some guys try to lift the mood, others stare at the ground. And everyone knows this situation cannot hold for long. It feels like the team wins in spite of the line, not because of it. And that is incredibly dangerous, because eventually other units start breaking down too, as they are forced to absorb more work than they were built to handle. And while all this chaos unfolds, fans keep imagining what this offense could look like with real protection. You can almost picture the bold play calls, the extended routes, the creative improvisation. The unpredictable rhythm changes. But any fantasy like that lasts only a few seconds before reality hits again. This offense is always playing with the brakes on, not because of a lack of talent, but because of the fear of the next collapse. Even so, in the middle of everything, there are still moments that bring back a spark of hope, a contested catch, a run that breaks through multiple tackles, a perfectly placed throw delivered with a defender in the quarterback's face. These are the moments that remind everyone what the offense is capable of if it just gets a stable foundation. But as long as that foundation shakes this much, all of this stays as nothing more than potential. And when the game reaches that stage where every single play feels like it could decide the entire outcome, the offensive line inevitably becomes the center of attention again. For the wrong reasons. One mistake is enough to drag back the trauma of previous weeks, and it is no exaggeration. The fans walk in already expecting the worst because they have seen this movie too many times. And even in wins, the feeling is more like survival than control. Now, with the schedule getting tougher and tougher, the urgency becomes impossible to ignore. There is no more room to experiment and see if a different lineup will work. There is no more cushion to hope that a line struggling since the opening week will suddenly flip a switch and dominate. The reality is that the team needs answers now. It needs visible adjustments. It needs a posture that shows genuine improvement, not just desperation. And the odd thing is that despite all of this, there is still confidence in some of the individuals. Some players show technique, strength, awareness, and effort. But until the unit works together, individual talent becomes a footnote. The offensive line is the kind of group that only functions when everyone moves in sync. And right now that is far from happening. With all that in mind, the lingering feeling is that this offense is stuck in an uncomfortable cycle. Enough talent to compete at a high level, but execution inconsistent enough to prevent dominance. The team moves forward, stumbles, reacts, struggles, wins, and repeats the pattern every week. And until the protection finds a way to hold everything together, this storyline will keep looping, as if no one can quite find the switch that finally changes everything. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. Whispers are swirling through the NFL landscape after an explosive claim lit up social media circles. SHEDEUR Sanders, supremely confident after what insiders describe as a statement performance against Cleveland, is said to have stunned the league not only on the field but off it as well, according to those close to the situation. The young quarterback supposedly embarrassed the Browns' defense with a level of poise and command that left scouts buzzing and executives scrambling. And now, in the latest twist to a story that seems to grow wilder by the hour, he is rumored to have agreed to a 4-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens. Nothing is confirmed, far from it, but the chatter has been relentless. Some say the Ravens quietly position themselves ahead of the curve, sensing an opportunity to reshape their offensive identity around a quarterback whose swagger has become as recognizable as his arm talent. Others insist that the alleged agreement is nothing more than premature noise, fueled by rival front offices hoping to unsettle Baltimore's current hierarchy. Even so, the speculation refuses to die down, largely because the idea feels just plausible enough to be true. Sources describe the supposed negotiations as rapid and unusually smooth, with both sides aligning on offensive vision, branding potential, and the chance to build a dynamic system tailored to Sanders' strengths. For the Ravens, such a move would represent a bold shift toward a more vertical, improvisational attack. For Sanders, it would be a chance to step into one of the league's most storied franchises, an organization known for toughness, identity, and star-making moments. Fans have already begun debating what the rumor means. Would Sanders' rival signal a new era? How would he mesh with the Ravens' current personnel? And why Baltimore, of all teams, when other franchises are believed to be searching aggressively for a quarterback with his exact profile? For now, nothing is official. There is no announcement, no contract details, no press conference on the horizon, just the persistent hum of a league that thrives on the unexpected. Still, the noise continues to grow. And if there's one thing everyone seems to agree on, it's this: whether true or not, the idea of SHEDEUR Sanders in Ravens purple has already captured the imagination of the football world. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.